off about it and turned it into what my ex-logic calls fortress paranoia. So I've got infrared lights and motion detecting cameras and all sorts of nonsense. Anyway, that's what's actually lighting this up. Oh, I've got a laser on this, everything's better than lasers. There we go. So you've got this stick here, and if you look here, that's the shadow of the stick from the infrared light that's sort of over here somewhere. If you were actually there at the time, this would be pitch black dark. So here we are, look, we've got this snail zooming around here. Either one as often as this one here wandering around. This is taken at 250 times normal speed. Now the reason I actually tried this out in the first place is the guy who did the infrared camera thought he'd actually give it a go. So he put the camera pointing out of his patio window. It's the guy who actually designed it. I can't remember who it was actually. The name escapes me at the moment. But he actually pointed his camera out back into the back garden to see what he could see at night. And it then turned out his back garden was snail central. So I thought, well, let's give that a go. So I put that in my back garden. It turns out I'm slug central. Oh, interestingly here, you can see it's all quietened down. You've also got bluebells. It might sound a bit stupid, but the reason the bluebells are blue is because we're now looking in daytime. So all the slugs and snails, come on, get to bed, it's bedtime. There you go. He's actually curled up there now to actually hide during the day. So all the snails and slugs have now gone to sleep. The sunlight's out, or the clouds out, and you can get all the blue and the bluebells. And not a lot happens until blah blah blah. Still nothing, not a lot happening, still during the day. One thing you will find with this, you get an awful lot of really boring footage which you can fast flip through. Look, the sun's come out, it's a miracle. But again, this is, although you can tell the sun's out, basically boring. I found that the best days, without any doubt, you want the night after it's rained during the day. Because then all the slugs come out and party. It's always useful to know when slugs are going to have a party in your back garden. And go find this nut. Aha, if I run it back just a little, you can see here, no shadow. And as we go on a bit, you'll see the lights dim down, the blue and the blue bells. They are blue bells, aren't they? I think I got that right. The blue and the blue bells fades as we go into the evening, and at some point you can see the infrared come on. It's one of those light sensitive things. There we are, infrared's on, you can now see the shadow of the stick. And look, there they go, they all wake up. Fun times. But there's some problems here. Now, originally, when I did my first pie in the back garden, I had the power supply plugged inside the house, poked the power cable of the pie out through the window, and had the pie sitting on the table in the back garden, right next to the house. Didn't really move it around much. And I thought I want some sort of waterproofing, so I checked the weather forecast.
Tim, can I just stop you because I've been really stupid and I'm not sure.
Oh, right. So, you can actually put the power supply for the pie in the house, put the pie just outside, which is that. I know this thing works. Can you hear me? See that? Yeah. So I put the pie inside the house, sorry, the power supply for the pie inside the house, an absolutely bog standard one. And I had the pie just outside the back garden. Got some pretty rubbish shots, in fact they're actually so boring I can bother keeping them. But it's just to test it out. Then I thought, let's try it another night, but it was forecast to rain. So I thought, I need waterproof, I need a waterproof housing. Now fortunately we have a local emporium that does just that sort of thing. And they provide a nice waterproof housing like this. Better yet, it actually comes with complimentary rice inside of it, so you can have a nice It's great, it's food, it's waterproof housing. But there's actually, these are really cheap, but they're actually a bit fragile. Worst of all, they have a habit of blowing away. Which brings me on to tip number 1 as part of this talk. You'll find that Raspberry Pis and Raspberry Pi cameras work significantly better when they're dry. If they get rained on, they tend to stop working. I have done such hideous things with pies, it's ridiculous. So we've got this pie, it stopped working, you go out and say, what's wrong with it? It's underwater. It turns out bad. So you do what the obvious thing you do is you turn the power off, you bring it in, and you stick it on the towel, wait 24 hours, and it's fine. There's no, electronics shouldn't survive that kind of thing. But actually it did, it's a miracle. The amount of grief I put pies through. So then I thought, right, we're going to need to upgrade the case here. Now, I put no expense spared, right? So I went round to the local Pi waterproof housing shop, or as it's otherwise known, Wilkinson's. And I went and bought, so we get this to work, it should be on VGA 1. My glasses quick, oh, that's in there. God, work. Yes. So this is my state-of-the-art. It's a very expensive case, this is really upmarket, this was 50 pence. Right. Actually, there's almost like a standing joke amongst us about how cheap could I make it, because there's no point putting it in a £200 house. If you want to do it professionally, that's what you want. But I thought, just for a giggle, how cheap could I make it? Now this cake actually is only the lid, but I'm not going to pick that up and weigh around too much of it. But it's significantly tougher than the other rice container, which is great. We'll come to why these, well, lots of reasons why it needs to be tougher. So what I did here, this is actually slightly distorted, isn't it? I want to tweak this. This is tweaking as well. Anyway, what I've got in here, the other problem of course is actually power. If you want it more than about 6 inches outside the window or the back door or the cat flap or something, you're going to need to get power to it. One of the problems is the Pi needs 5 volts, plus or minus 5% in it, so it's basically 5 volts plus or minus a quarter of a volt. If you put 5 volts of power of Pi down a cable like this, it turns out not a lot ends up coming up out the other end, which is a bit of a problem, because Pi, if you maybe put a good 5 volts in at one end, you might get 4.5 out the other, not enough. So that was my first thing. Some people might be tempted, this is one thing I wanted to warn against. This is what I was using to go right down the other end of the garden to take those shots. You might be tempted to run mains down the bottom of the garden. If you think pies and water don't mix, you really ought to try mains and water. Really bad combo. So what I actually did is I thought about this, and I thought, I know what I can do. I can use an old laptop power supply, which are actually quite cool, and a 19 volts. So what I actually do is I feed 19 volts down this. And then inside here, actually I'll use the laser pointer. Right. This bit here, the typical endless hours of fun on eBay, this is a thing that they call a buck, which is a DC to DC converter. So what I'm actually doing, I feed 19 volts down here. This has got a little preset there. You can buy, on with me actually, you can buy these that take typically 12 volts or whatever and spit 5 volts up the end. They use an awful lot in cars to power USB power devices from car batteries. But this takes a 19 volts, converts it down to 5. Now if you've got 18 rather than 19 coming down there, doesn't really matter. This is exactly the same principle as you have with electricity distribution. You actually put down here as a much higher voltage, transform it down in power supply. You'll note that I've actually fed the power in on the GPIO pins. This is a Raspberry Pi Model A. Again, I've actually used a regional float Model A. This is where my old Pis go to die. If you're going to put stuff out in the back garden, use the ones that you managed to break this on. The one that's actually stood out in the back garden now, I've got 2 or 3 of these, I've been playing with them. This is the Mark II design. The one that's out in the back garden now, for some reason the HDMI connector doesn't work on it. But who cares, it's stuck on the bottom of the garden, right? And if it actually dies, it just gives me an excuse to buy something else. Probably a much better idea is the Model A, with the downstairs cheap and small, which is 2 big pluses. This here is the classic Pi camera cable, all fairly standard stuff. I used a glue gun to mount it. Actually, I'll show this around a bit afterwards, but I've actually done is I've used Velcro to secure the Pi to the bottom. Now the catches with this is getting all the data back. If you just want to run it over a night, fine, you can probably store it on an SD card. but I wanted to run it. As you can see from the videos I've shown earlier, you get an awful lot of really boring this, that and the other. The slugs aren't playing tonight. Oh, it's a grey sky, what we do. I have actually got some vague stars moving because I've got one light shot I was playing around with. But that's why I've got this, which is a wireless dongle, and just got to make out the aerial. You probably see it down here better actually. There's the aerial. So it's actually networked. So what it actually does is it records the pictures that I used to make up the time lapse on the SD card there, and then that's so that the Pi itself can just write to SD card, write to SD card, write to SD card, not a problem. It then, another process on the Pi goes, that's the photos, I'll transfer them indoors. So that if the network goes down or whatever, it still keeps recording the data. That I found very useful. I did a lot of searching around and eventually found these amazingly £2.50 I think Wi-Fi dongles from some dodgy vendor on eBay. They had the plus, the big plus, that you can detach the aerial, but this isn't the original aerial. It actually comes with a little, oops, can you show that in there? Yeah, it actually comes with a connector. This is great because you can thread the connector through the case. That gives you waterproofing. Lovely. Now, I actually thought I wanted to make that hole there quite tight. So it's like, oh, they're screwing this thing in, right? That was the point I found out that the outside of the case goes through the PCB, goes onto the screw terminal thing. And I was warping the PCB inside. You get to the point where you get this ping noise, and the chip that does the Wi-Fi pings off the circuit board. This may affect your network connectivity, not in a good way.
You can hear that all the way from the end of the garden?
No, I was sitting there going, ping, oh. So I took it apart and there was no way I could resolder it. So I ordered 2 more of them. You're like, yeah, these work. Something else you'll find is that I got 2 more of these, of which that's actually one. So they look exactly the same. Brilliant! Internally, utterly different. They've got a completely different chipset on the board. The original one was fully supported by the Pi. This one, not supported by the Pi. Me, I'm happy. Somebody put a lot of effort in to get support for this for the original Pi, and I just got it working. And then in a typical move, the Pi Foundation released a 4.1 kernel which has major support, so all that effort was for nothing. So over a weekend, they just released support for this, and now these particular ones just work, which is great. So that's the secret. Using glue gun to bung that hole up a bit. That's just a tight-ish fit. Notice ish and a bit. The camera, very, very hard to waterproof. So what I actually did is I kept one of the lids something like this. I put the top on that. That's reasonably waterproof out the back. Camera, yeah, you put that on the top like that. There's a sort of like roof over the top. Of course, this blows away. So we need a high-tech solution to actually solve this problem, or as I prefer to call it, a half brick, which brings us back to why we need these sturdier case. You put a half brick or a full brick, as it is on my current one, which brings us back to cats, by the way. That's why you need bricks on top. I haven't got it with me, but I've got a wonderful photo or video rather from the CCTV of a cat walking down the garden, tripping over the wire, flying over that, knocking that flying, and cat goes. It's actually, I have to show you that video, he's actually superb. No, I didn't knock your Pi camera flying. Which is why you put bricks on top of them, because it keeps cats from knocking stuff flying. So that's covered the rain problem and the cat problems. This is with the sun problem. One of the cards I actually tried with this earlier, the card was actually sticking out the back, that's why that hole on there is slightly in the wrong place. I actually had a USB adapter, and it was actually on the outside, and I actually fed cables through. It was a black USB adapter, like the one in that is, and it got so hot. It runs pretty warm anyway. It was out all day in the sun, and wireless networking went down because it overheated. Strangely, I plugged it in, it cooled down, and it worked again, which is brilliant. I've also had the case where the entire Pi itself was actually overheated and actually shut down, which is why I now put, rather than clear tops, I now use a bit that fell off when my fence broke a few years ago. I've got a little piece of wood I put over the top, it just keeps it in the shade. It's all very bodgy, but it does seem to work. Now, what else do I need to cover on this? Any questions looking at that so far? A lot of this is about the physical hardening of it. The way I actually take photos is I don't use video software on the Pi. I actually use the take a still photo software called Raspberry Still. And you can set it to take a photo either every 10 seconds or every minute or two that I've used. Slug cam was, I think, one every 10 seconds. Then you then join all those photos together into a film using a program called FFmpeg, which I was going to put up mounds of shell strips on the screen, but it's basically not worth it. I'll actually, if anyone wants all the strips, I'll get my to email them out or something. The Pi is not the fastest video encoding machine on the planet, especially when you're doing high def. On the other hand, it takes practically no power, so who cares? But I actually encode it much quicker on an i5 because it's got the multi-cores and all the rest of it. But you can encode it on a Pi. My rule is everything you do must be doable on a Pi. In fact, you can do it faster elsewhere is useful. If you can't do it on the Pi, you're making assumptions that they'll have something else. If someone's doing a Pi camera, they've got a Pi. In fact, actually, if you're sitting out in the back garden just taking photos every minute, it may as well, just powering it up, do the video encoding. How much time have I got left, Mike?
About 5 minutes.
Yeah, that more or less covers it. I've been playing with the infrared camera and the non-infrared camera. Video encoding takes off, but you do get that gorgeous high-def stuff. The other thing I've found is that if you're taking the still photos overnight, some of the photos are 1 second exposure. So even though it's pitch black, though they get the infrared light, it's pretty dim. If you try and take video footage, it's like faint motion, visible roughly. If you run it with a time lapse, it's taking 1 second photos, so you get some really quite good shots. In fact, now those snail cam, each photo took about, each frame of the film took about a second to take. This is just my own design. This was done really cheap. This is me basically bodging stuff around, saying how cheaply can I do it with stuff that's lying around. There's lots of other ways you can do this kind of thing. This worked for me, it's cheap. The whole idea was it's out in the back garden. There's a reasonable chance it's going to flood. I do underwater photography with a scuba diving. And miraculously, I've never had a camera flood. I'm the only person I know who's not happened to. We've had people who had like 600-pound cameras under the water, and it's gone blah, 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 and they've not been happy after the dive. So I worked on the principle that the stuff's got to, you've actually got to be prepared for the stuff to die. Which is why I use my old Pis, the ones with the broken video ports, the ones that have only got 256 megs of RAM. You get the gist, it's all the sacrificable stuff, that's the right term. Any questions?
Can I see, where is the actual camera coming out of?
Right, sorry. We've actually got, so I can do this. Ooh, is this going to work?
Ah, yeah.
See, that's how I did the camera. It just pokes out the end. That could be actually, can you see it better from the side? There you are. A bit upside down. No, I can't do that and point below, but you can see the camera.
At the end, yeah.
Yeah, exactly, the cable coming up at the top. And it comes up there. This is why this is quite useful. Can you do a side shot? There we go. The camera actually points down, which is quite useful if you're doing slug cam photos. You've got the angle off the side of the tin. This is, I obviously took weeks designing this. It's the sloping side of the tin. And because you glue gun the camera in like that, the camera itself is actually at an angle because I glue gunned along the top. So if that's the side, the camera's like that, and the camera goes like that and you glue gun it in, so it's pointing down even within the pointing down side. So from there, its actual angle is pretty much down like that, which is great because this is up on a garden chair, and look down at the snails on the ground. It's a bit of a pain in the backside, and I was pointing up to take the cloud photos. But actually, you work that to your advantage, because that means you don't need to worry about waterproofing this side of stuff. You just need to put the little thing on top, but there's an upper limit. So I actually waited until there was a really, really dry evening to sit there and try some of the more up like that shots. And that's not as velcroed on as it should be. But that was the basic idea I came up with. It's really stupidly simple and stupidly cheap, which is the idea. As you've seen some of the photos I was showing earlier, it actually works remarkably well. Although I do expect to take loads of stuff and cut it out, because you are going to get days where it's like, yes, high-speed grey clouds. Marvellous. Oh, I think there's one other thing. Actually, if I switch back to the other one, which before my initially going over time, when you're taking cloudy photos, well, what's this Mac nonsense? Around here.
Windows, masquerading's on that.
Even worse. Is that actually allowed? Right, where were we?
I'm sure that's the right port.
What are we on? We're on HDMI 2. Should be. No. Yeah. Well, something's on clump. I think that might want to sleep for slightly intensely irritating. How am I waiting? Why is it going to work?
Turn the wireless off on your remote.
I like it.
It's as though it's got the... Go on, relink. Actually, I don't know. Yeah, what I was going to point out, actually, you probably can't tell it on those photos I had, on that video I had up there. But I rebooted it. Right, anyway, when I had it pointing up at the clouds, the sun goes past, strangely enough, as it tends to do if you try to video sunsets. Pointing a Pi camera at the sun permanently means that if that's like full screen, you couldn't see it on those photos, but there's two, if you just get a pure blue sky where it's completely uniform, very rare in the UK, but it does happen occasionally. If you look at the video I've taken from those, you get some two pale tracks on it. That was the 2 sunny days where the sun went past and actually damaged the sensor on the camera. So if you're really fussy about your camera being pristine, don't point it at the sun. On the other hand, that camera and one of the other ones got these very, very pale marks. I'd have to sit there and spend a while trying to find them on a photo, but I haven't got time to find them now. You have to know what you're looking for. Like, I'm sure no one actually said, what are those pale streaks on the photo about? Come on. But you need to be aware that you may damage your camera if you're pointing anywhere where the sun can get to it. Not really a great surprise, and it's not horrendous damage, but it is visible. So if you want that for really high quality photos, then you're going to be out of luck in the future.
Just a minute left.
Which ones have we got that's nice sun ones? Come on. Let's try. You might see it on one of these. Oh, this is another one. Yeah, so this is where I turned the camera around the other way. So this is actually my house there. Oh, you actually see me walking past with people and stuff. The sun sets. That is basically pointing north, and I did this to avoid further damage to the lens because I got a bit cheesed off my damage to the lens. This is not. Oh, it all worked. There we go.
Was it permanent damage?
Yes.
Okay.
It's not serious. I mean. Ah, yes.
Night.
Exactly. Well, if you just look, here we are, look, it's the dawn. You can't actually even see it. Actually, I think on this screen you wouldn't be able to. Which, you know, yes, it is permanently damaged. If you know what you're looking for, there's a faint pale stripe, one roughly there. which is the track of the sun.
Yeah,
Yeah, but I had to point it out. You never actually spotted it. That's the permanent damage you can actually do to the camera. It's, yeah.
And that's the track of the sun, is it?
That's the track of the sun. I've actually got one of these ones on it has actually got that particular photo. It's got that particular scene where the sun goes past. I was thinking that for this in schools, we're talking about weather systems and clouds for geography. You can quite clearly see so much stuff you wouldn't normally be able to spot at the time.
got to stop there, Jim.
You're okay with single photos? That's the sun from 17 miles.
Yes, I was actually.
That was on Sky Academy, we took that.
Oh right, okay.
The camera was at 17 miles, isn't it?
Okay, that's cool.
It was swinging, the payload kept swinging. So we got a beautiful picture of the sun.
I think because it was actually swinging. It's a camera in a fixed position and the sun's going.
Yeah, I think it's looking at it all the time.
It was looking at it for literally hours.
Oh.
As you can see this, you know, if I hadn't pointed it out, who would have actually spotted that track? So it's not the end of the world. Actually, you can see them clearly on there. There's one.
Now it's all you can see.
Yeah, now there's actually one there, and there's another one there.
Oh my God.
See, once you know they're there, but if I hadn't pointed it out, you can see it one there, another one there. Well, okay, that's it, folks. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Next person up is Demi, and he's going to talk to you about Festival of Coke.